Hey guys, what's up? This is week 47. Let me address a couple things. This is going to be, I'll be at Cinema Wasteland when this goes live, or maybe I'll post it a day early. That way I won't have to screw with posting it on sites and everything like that. So that might be up Friday instead of Saturday. So if you're wondering why it's a day early, that's why. I have some reviews for you. Pick a movie, the typical stuff. I did watch the remake of Cabin Fever. I'm not going to review it because I really don't have anything to say about it except it felt really weird and pointless and just didn't do anything better than the original, and the tone wasn't... It was trying to be a little too serious compared to the original, but it also wasn't goofy enough or serious enough to really fit into anything and do anything well. I thought the acting was weaker. I thought the effects were weaker. Thought that maybe some of the camera work was a little bit better because the budget and that stuff, just technology let them do some, not even camera work better. They just had more technology so they could do like drone shots and overhead shots and stuff like that. Not really worth watching. I would just say watch the original again. I mean, it's hard to... The first one has like a little lightning in a bottle kind of deal where it's just right time, right place. Really good homage to what it was doing, and this one is just not different enough to be even worth watching, but it doesn't even do that well, so I don't even know what to say about it. It's just really pretty bad. But let me hop into the reviews. The first one I'll be reviewing is 420 Massacre. The filmmaker sent this over, and I had heard some things. Well, I heard the title floating around, and I was like, okay, here we go. It's a modern slasher. Those can go both ways. Can be pretty bad or decent. It's really hard to make a really good modern slasher movie nowadays, I think. But here we go. This one, obviously the title, it's got some weed innuendo. It's basically about a group of female campers, hikers, friends, whatever. They want to go out and camp at this area, but there is this growing area out there, illegally growing marijuana, some people out there, and they'll protect it at all costs. The setup there is actually pretty cool, so you got a little bit of different setup here. The ranger warns him. It's played by like an actor who pops up in a bunch of things. He may look familiar to you. He's in lots and lots of movies, been acting for years. He basically warns him of the setup. In the very beginning, a couple potheads get killed trying to steal marijuana. The practical effects look pretty solid. There's some gut spills here and there. The highlight of this movie is definitely the interactions between the characters. All the leads in here, they actually take the time to make them real characters. Even the burnout girl, she's hilarious, and she has her moments of use, and she's not just completely useless, or she's actually funny, and probably one of the most likable characters in the movie. There's a couple lesbian relationships going on here, love stories. One that is kind of embraced and one that is kind of denied. That adds like a element of drama in here. The one thing is there's not really any nudity, and for a slasher movie you kind of expect it, to be honest, and there was a lot of times for it, but this movie is definitely more of a character drama than a slasher movie at times. When the kills start to happen towards the end of the movie, there is some CGI added in. The CGI does not look good. It doesn't feel needed. It's like that kind where there's some blood, practical blood, and then there'll be a CGI spray, and it's like, that wasn't even needed, to be honest. There is a twist in it. You kind of see it coming. It's not super obvious, but it's a little obvious. The killer in here, I think he has a nice design. He's like in a ghillie suit, I think they call it, where he's all, dressed down in camo and stuff, and he's pretty intimidating, pretty scary. All the characters, at least most of them, try to fight back. They're not completely useless idiots. They don't really annoy you to that extent where they're like, oh, they're super idiots. One person does something particularly dumb that's a little annoying. But overall, it makes it just a little past average. It's a little better than average. The CGI isn't great. The practical effects are okay when they're there. The acting's solid. For the most part, there's not really any weak acting points in the movie. The setup is nice, and the characters are actually well thought out, and the actresses bring them to life. There's some features on here as well, interviews with the cast, which I enjoyed. They talk about their experience on the movie. An interview with the old actor who has been in a slew of stuff, and he's really candid. Talks about people he liked and didn't like. Basically, who did he say was a dick? David Carradine on the set of Kung Fu, which is pretty funny, but... yeah, those are interesting things here and there. And there's a commentary, of course, as well. These guys, they seem all right. They seem like they're pretty cool. They know how to make a movie, I guess. And They definitely stretched their budget. They picked a really nice location, which really helped with it. I think it's worth checking out, especially if you like slasher movies or you want to see a movie with some powerful female lead characters. I think this may interest you. It is 420 Massacre. Not nearly as silly as the title would suggest.
Damn, you really do smoke a lot of weed, you know that?
Well, keep in mind I don't normally blaze up this much. It just so happens to be a holiday.
A holiday?
I'm pretty sure she's talking about 420.
So where's that put us now? That's a good question. You gotta be fucking kidding me.
What the hell is that?
Help me! He was hunting us. And we were the prey. And it got Doug. It got Doug, and now it's coming for me. It's coming for me.
Why would someone want to kill a cool guy like you?
The weed.
Did you just say the weed?
Whoa.
Holy crap balls!
Take it, please. You're all next.
Good shit! There's a bunch of other jacked up shit that's happened on 420, which is why it is our collective duty to blaze up on this day.
What in God's name are you talking about? He's gonna kill us too if we don't get the fuck out of here right now! Go! Push out!
Hey guys, here for a review of The Siege, aka Self-Defense. This is a pretty hard to find movie. I heard about it on the Pure Cinema podcast. I also heard about it on a list, like right before that, right when the Death Wish remake came out. They're like 10 vigilante movies, way better than Death Wish remake. And they had a bunch on there, including Walking the Edge, which I ordered, this, and Enemy Territory, I think, was on there too. So it had a lot of movies that I wanted to see. And I had heard about all of them except the Walking the Edge, this, and I had heard Enemy Territory. So yeah, The Siege, it's a exploitation movie. It's Canadian exploitation. And it's basically about a group of thugs that trap a bunch of people in an apartment complex during a police strike. It opens up hilarious. Like, it opens up like a post-apocalyptic movie, but then proceeds to play out not like a post-apocalyptic movie at all. Like, they added that in last minute. They're like, this is in the near future, in an urban city. The
Halifax,
police,
Canada.
No, they don't say that. They're like, urban city. The police are on strike. And then they're like, we're in Halifax, Canada. I was like, why would you say that if you're just going to tell us what city you're in anyways? It ruins the purpose of people putting themselves anywhere. But the opening of this movie is very intense. These thugs come into a gay club and they start picking on people. Things get out of hand and they end up having to execute everybody in the gay club. One guy escapes into an apartment. The people in the apartment decide to protect him, a la Straw Dogs kind of, and the bad guys try to get in any means necessary. This is definitely a precursor to The Green Room, which, believe it or not, I'm not a huge fan of. I think it's a good movie. It's overrated completely, and it's like a late night movie you'd see on HBO that's solid, that somehow managed to be on everyone's best of movie list. Like, it's the greatest movie ever made. I'm like, it's a solid HBO late night movie. That's what it felt like to me. But yeah, we have a group of 5 guys, 6, including the leader, that trap these people in, and the people are kind of bizarre. There's a couple blind guys. One played by Keith Knight, who pops up in Class of 1984, My Bloody Valentine of Unknown Origin. And basically it turns into a violent Home Alone movie. I watched the Laserdisc rip, so I expected the quality to be decent. It is a dark movie, and the Laserdisc is dark as hell, too. I couldn't really make out half the movie, to be honest, which hurts it. I shouldn't say. It's a dark movie, and it doesn't look great.
I'd say, like, once they start going into the apartment complex, like, everybody cuts for lights. So the second half of the movie is in total darkness, so you're just seeing, like, on the print we watched, just like the white outlines of the edges of their faces and nothing else. And people are dying. You're like, well, that piece of white dropped down over there.
I was like, which guy was that who just bit it? Which one died?
Right.
It's very mean-spirited. It's violent, but there's a couple moments of goofy. It's kind of goofy at the same time. And the twist at the ending is like, that's not really a twist because you said something earlier about it. And unless I wasn't paying attention, I guess maybe people forget that was in there. And then they're like, oh, duh. I'd rather have the twists be eliminated and something had happened to that character instead. When you were watching it, you were like, this is almost like an anarchist versus a bunch of anarchists.
Right.
Because one of the guys is like big anti-cop and he like is essentially MacGyver. He builds all these weird things. He builds like a homemade grenade launcher that has like a dirty bomb in it with all this nasty like nails and stuff in it. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of that going on. I think it's pretty cool, a solid movie, but I don't think it's great. I think that a lot of people would have a fondness for it because, you know, it's impossible to find. It's really hard to find. Like, if there's a Laserdisc of it, I think it would be a little bit more known. I think it's worth checking out if you can find it. I think that Keith Knight was wasted just a little bit. I would like to see him more. And I think that he would have been better fitted as one of the bad guys, to be honest. We saw what he could do in 84, and he was great. The bad guys are real ruthless. I hate them. One has a really cheesy laugh that... These are the kind of bad guys that deserve to die. Even if you're the least of the bad, you deserve to die by guilty by association. The acting's solid, I guess, but it's really hard to tell what goes on, and it's very repetitive. It goes on for way too long, and nothing changes. It's just the same thing. The movie should have ended 10 minutes earlier than it actually is. There's like 10 minutes of stuff still going on after the main movie is like resolved. Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's not bad. It's not my thing. If you're into that Siege stuff, I mean, then yeah, you'd probably like it, but I've seen it done better and more exciting, I guess.
I mean, yeah, right? I prefer Sieges to be supernatural sometimes. Like, we're trapped in From Dusk Till Dawn is so fun. Night of the Living Dead. It's just much more scary when it's, or even like Rio Bravo, they're trapped in the town. Yeah, it's solid, and it's definitely worth watching if you're into these types of movies. The bad guys are despicable. It's mean-spirited. It's a dark movie in tone and visually. It's dark. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd like to see a better print of it. You know, it's hard to give a review of a movie when it looks so dark in the first place, and you can't really see like half the things that are going on. You lose interest at times because you're like, who just died there? Like, I just watched like an hour part of a movie, and like, it's really hard to grasp what the hell just happened right there. But I would...
I got a cold.
So, I just had one last week. Mm-hmm. I would recommend checking it out. I like it. I don't think you like it very much.
It was okay. It's contrived, I think.
I wouldn't say contrived. I would just say repetitive.
Well, like, the way that like they navigate the apartment building, like all the secret exits they have. I mean, there's really only two, but it's like it's like a nightmare. Like, somebody had a nightmare that they were like going in like a loop in between these two apartment rooms, and then they made a movie around it. Because that's kind of how it works. Like, let's crawl through this mirror, and
it's super convenient. I wouldn't say it's contrived.
Yeah.
Like, everything's set up for convenience in this. It's like, well, hey, we have a two-way mirror, and hey, we have access to the roof, which we normally wouldn't have. All these like things that are convenient play into how they fight the bad guys. It is definitely very convenient, and for such a serious dark movie, it can be kind of like, okay. And also, the bad guys are morons, except the main bad guy. He is very intelligent, but the rest of them are all idiots, and he has access to these like silencer machine gun type guns. And in Canada, you're just like, eh? And also, I mean, like, you're going to give these goofballs? These guys can barely tie their shoes. I'm surprised they can use these guns. And at first, they're so unsure of what they've done. And then right when they get the guns, they're like, okay, let's just kill a bunch more people. Who cares? And the opening is really dark and really sets the tone, but the movie never can hold a candle to the opening of the movie. And that's a problem. You know, when the opening's so good, the rest of the movie should follow suit. It's hard, and it doesn't. It's good. It's not great.
The police are on strike. The streets are deserted. Armed gangs rule the city.
That's the building over there.
They want to get into your house.
Should I answer the door?
You're asking me?
I see a target.
How do I want to report it?
You can't call for help. You're trapped inside. What do you do now? Self-defense.
What do we got to defend ourselves with? Got the 303, but just 2 bullets, hollow point.
It's you
Great.
against them.
Anybody who touches the doorknob downstairs is gonna die. This is crazy.
When the moment comes, just make sure you're ready.
Now!
When you're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time, your last defense is self-defense.
I'm afraid I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
Self-defense.
Okay, the next one is Cockfighter, made 1974. This is a Japanese Blu-ray. I had not seen the American release. That's the only one I have. There's 2 ways to watch it, widescreen or full screen. I don't know what this movie was originally shot in. The prints do look a little bit different, if I'm not mistaken. Warren Oates stars in this movie. Warren Oates popped up in a couple of Monty Hellman movies. This is directed by Monty Hellman. Monty Hellman did Two Lane Blacktop, The Shooting, Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, and Cockfighter. Yeah, this one is actually fairly interesting. It has a nice cast. It's based off a book. Back in the day when movies could be based off books and no one complained or no one even knew about it. It has Harry Dean Stanton in it. Has Ed Begley Jr., Millie Perkins, and a bunch of other familiar faces. Warren Oates has a very unique role in this that it's pretty much silent. He narrates in it, but for the most part it's silent. This is a look into the world of cockfighting, and the trailer will tell you it's banned in 47 states. I don't know anything about cockfighting. I didn't know anything about cockfighting before this movie. I didn't know when cockfighting got banned. I didn't even know that it was still allowed to be happening in the 70s. So it's a very interesting movie, and the way that cockfighting is in this, it's a big thing in certain states. Like the senator comes out and he awards people the prizes for the best cockfighter of the year who raises all these chickens and has them fight. So it's a very interesting movie. If you're scared of animal cruelty in films, which I don't blame you, don't watch this. There's real cockfighting. There's heads being chopped off and stuff. Even one by Warren Oates, a couple of them. So, you know, this is going to bother a lot of people right off the get-go. This is definitely not something that would ever be made or could be made today. But it's an interesting movie. If you're into gambling, if you're into looking at a part of Americana that doesn't really exist anymore, I like that. This is the type of movie that I really like because they're going from different settings and places, and you meet a lot of different characters and whatnot. What'd you actually think about it?
It's pretty good. It's shot beautifully. I like the locations. I couldn't tell exactly where it was from. For some reason I thought it was in a more northern state. Just like the pine trees and things.
For some reason, I wanted to guess like Kentucky or stuff like that, but I wasn't 100% sure on it.
Right. Oh, it was in a... No, that was that John Wayne movie.
I probably should have done some research on it to like look into like where cockfighting was, but it was so strange to watch all these like kind of like character actors and stuff like betting on the cockfighting, and it was just like so interesting to see that as well. And some of Warren Oates' ways, he would like take a joke, he'd slap on his knee. And there's a character in the movie that he first befriends that they become partners. And at first I really didn't like the guy, but by the end of the movie he was like the comic relief in it, the Polish guy, and he actually became one of the stronger characters of the movie. I really enjoyed him. And I enjoyed him and Warren Oates' relationship. And there's, of course, a love story in here, too, which is strange to see Warren Oates as like a love symbol in a movie because he's got to be a little older than the women he's supposedly in a relationship with here. Mm-hmm. But it's nice to see Warren Oates in the starring role. He's not necessarily a good guy. The movie has some good humor in it at points. One person that Warren Oates did wrong, a woman, at the end of one of the fights, she runs out and starts beating up. Now I'm coughing. Warren Oates. And one of the guys says, what were the odds on her in the fight? And that's just a great scene. The end it plays like a sports movie, like a drama sports movie, but with cockfighting. The slow motion cockfighting shot really well. It's really graphic though, and it's bloody. There's chickens being killed, so this is not something that people would want to typically be interested in watching, to be honest.
Right, yeah, they attach those little spurs to their ankles, and they actually just have two chickens go at it. And it's so strange to see all these different rules in it as well. I like the locations are great, and it's one of these movies where you meet all these different interesting characters, and it's a lot like Hard Times, where you go up and have pick-me fights, like, oh, well, we'll go here and have fights, and at different places, at different people, and the betting odds. It's like
the cockfighting version of Hard Times, if you would be honest. But it's an interesting movie. I think it's worth checking out, especially if you can get past that kind of stuff. You should enjoy it. It's kind of a classic film, and I'm really glad I seen it. And it's one of these movies that's going to disappear because of its subject matter for sure.
Yeah, it's I don't see Warren Oates as a star in a lot of movies. There's Bring Me the Head and maybe a handful of others I've seen.
Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, man. I can't think of maybe The Hired Hand, but he's like dual supporting.
Yeah, he's more supporting. So it's cool seeing him like be the leading man in this, but at the same time he's rarely speaking, and it's mostly pantomiming from him because he has like a vow of silence. Yeah.
So, because he lost a big game and he bet that he opened his mouth too much. So, it's kind of like when they take Vincent Price's voice away in Fibes. Like, you're like, Vincent Price is so known for his voice. And Warren Oates is so known for his voices as well, and I think he is. His voice is very memorable. But I would really recommend checking Cockfighter. I think it's pretty good.
What you are about to see is illegal in 47 states.
Black chicken.
I'll take 25 to 30.
I'll take it.
You're on. I'll lay 25 to 30. 25, 30 on the red.
I'll lay 30 to 20.
25, 30 there. Anybody got it?
Oh, you got it. 50 to 30. On the black. I got the black crystal.
You want to know something, boy? I am the finest trainer and conditioner in the whole world.
All right, let's go.
Cockfighting, the dirtiest sport in the world.
Get ready. Hit.
Now watch your face. No pity, no love, nothing.
Oh, wow. Hey, listen, Mr. Mansfield, I'm sorry. I didn't bring no cash with me. I was so sure I was going to win and everything. But listen, I got some money at home. I got a lot of it. I'm going to bring it back as soon as I get home.
Frank Mansfield, professional with a passion for violence.
I want to get married and have children.
The drive. The drive in it is to be the best. I like to call it sharpness.
Not since the hustler has the violent underbelly of the gambling world been so nakedly exposed. What kind of a man risks everything in America's most controversial blood sport? The kind who will do anything to win.
It's the desire to win.
I'm not going to wait for you forever.
Winning is the name of the game.
This is a stick-up. Hands over your heads. Anybody who moves gets a head blasted off.
Blam! And he knocks off the young rooster. And he says, damn it, that's the third faggot rooster I had this week.
I got the finest 5-pound chicken alive, Jack. Right here in my hands, the very finest.
I think that bird has more of a heart than you ever will have.
Anything that can fight to the death and not utter a sound, well, winning is the name of the game.
Warren Oates. Cockfighter. Rated R.
The next one here is Twilight, people, by VCI. This is made in 71, 72. This is by Eddie Romero, who is a really prolific guy, made tons of movies in the Philippines. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen Eddie Romero's movies, but he did like the Blood movies and whatever, and the guy who stars in this, John Ashley, was like a producer on a bunch of them. Twilight, people, is basically an Island of Dr. Moreau story. If you guys have ever seen that one from, there's like 3 versions. I never saw the 30s one, but I saw the 77 and then the 90s one, which is awful. But yeah, this one has Pam Grier in it. You want to move on to the next movie?
Yeah, sure.
I was just kidding. Yeah, this is so cheesy, so hokey. It's a mad scientist movie. It's very boring until the very ending. And the last act here is, it's really fun. The last act, it has these 5-6 creature mammals. The special effects are terrible. Pam Grier's a panther woman. There's a Batman. And then the rest of them, Antelope Man, Wolf Girl. You can barely tell what they are, to be honest. If they didn't tell you what they were on the back credits, you'd be like, I know that guy's a bat because he's flying, but that's about as far as it goes. The special effects are cheesy, but they work. The problem with the movie is the acting's not very strong. The characters aren't very strong. Nothing happens until the very end of the movie. It's cheesy, it's hokey, and you definitely need to see it with a group to appreciate it. Watching it just at your home alone, you're just going to be like, this is torturous. The main bad guy in it, not the doctor, but the Nazi character, he has zero screen presence. He would be an interesting character if he was, like, portrayed by somebody with more screen presence, like John Striner or somebody like that, I think. Would you agree? What did you think of this one?
I kind of hated it. The special effects were done with applesauce. And the third act of the movie was the most infuriating, frustrating thing on the planet to me. Imagine leading... never mind.
You say it.
Imagine leading a bunch of freaking retards on an island adventure. Imagine leading a bunch of mentally challenged individuals on an island adventure where you have to escape for your life. But they're just too inept to listen or even know what's really going on, and you kind of don't know the way, and so...
You see, the main character kind of befriends the daughter of the mad scientist, and with that, what happens is he has to... she wants to escape, and he's like, let's get out of here, and she's like, no, we have to save the manimals. I'll call them manimals. And they're completely ridiculous. They can barely function on any sort of level.
It's like kindergarten school children.
Yeah, it's like taking a bunch of kids on a field trip that won't listen. Like, the bat guy's immediately in a tree just screaming, and you're just like, what is going on? And it's just, the ape guy tries to molest her.
The other two keep fighting.
It's ridiculous. And this is before Pam Grier made it big, or I don't think she would have done this. Pam Grier's so much better than the source material, and she does the best job she can. The Doctor's okay, and they point out in the commentary by David Duvall and David Dakota, which is the best part of the features. There's a commentary, which I love. They do a lot of commentaries on these cheesy movies, and they talk about the movie. They know it's not great. They have appreciation for it. Seeing it with a crowd is what they say. And they talk about a lot of stuff about the movie, and they say the mad scientist, who I didn't realize who he was the guy who actually named Blackula.
Oh,
who's like, I shall call you Blackula. If you ever seen Blackula in the very beginning, he turns William Marshall, what's the guy's name? I can't think of his name. The guy who plays Blackula, and he names him Blackula. I remember watching that for the first time thinking, that is so stupid. But I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, really? But yeah, he's in this, and he plays a mad scientist. He's okay. John Ashley, you can tell, produced the movie, or otherwise he probably wouldn't be starring in these. But who else would star in it? I mean, I don't know. It's super corny, super cheesy. Is it better than the 90s Dr. Moreau? Maybe. I don't know. The effects aren't. I'd probably watch the 90s one again, but it's cheesy and corny. I think people will get an appreciation out of it if you like the Philippines movies. As for the print is concerned, it looks all right, I guess, but there's a lot of damage that looks like it came to it from temperature, like humidity and moisture damage. Like, it'll go yellow, green, and then the print color changes a lot. And I imagine this movie was stored in the Philippines, and it wasn't taken care of very well. The colors changed dramatically a lot, but that doesn't really bother me. Watching a movie like this, I'm like, I don't really care. As long as it looks crisp, I don't really care about the colors changing. It's not like you're watching Apocalypse Now, which is funny I say that because the director of this movie actually worked on Apocalypse Now and hundreds of other independent movies, along with tons and tons of stuff, the Philippines movies. But there's an hour interview with him on there. That's great, and the commentary's great. The movie, not so great.
Is this before or after, like, Coffee?
I think it's before.
It's before.
At least
Coffee.
it was shot before.
Coffee's before Foxy Brown?
I think Foxy Brown's out. I think Foxy Brown's 74, Coffee 73. This is 72 or 71. It's around the same time, though. It's all around there before Pam Grier blew up. But yeah, she did a bunch of movies in the Philippines. She did more movies than Eddie Romero, Black Mama, White Mama, and of course Sid Haig was in a bunch of those Philippines movies as well. But yeah, it gets action-packed at the end, but by then you just want it to be over.
Yeah.
And the Batman is hilarious. There's a boar guy, but he's not in it very long. I wish he was in it more.
And the plant lady?
Plant
lady? Or something?
The people that live in the forest, they're like the first experiments that are like messed up. I don't know what they are.
Just lost people. I don't know.
It's a weird movie. That's all I got to say on Twilight, people.
Half man, half beast, all monster, the Twilight people. Matt Farrell, soldier of fortune, plucked from the depths of the sea, plunged into a nightmare of supernatural science.
You are to participate in the single most important scientific event in the history of life on this planet.
We can do it here.
And I don't even get a formal invitation.
Would you mind lying down, please?
From the cave of cruelty they came. Test tube terrors evolved from evil. From the fortress of fear they fled. A herd of howling horrors thundering through the jungle. A savage stampede hell-bent on blood. Human desire. Animal lust. Fiendish, fanged phenomenon. Screaming demons screeching through the skies. Starring John Ashley, Pat Waddell, and a cast of creatures. Out of the shadows, on for your throat. The Twilight People. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
The next one is My Friend Dahmer. This just came out on Blu-ray. It's been on VOD for a while. I had my eyes on this one. I wanted to check it out. This follows a small chunk of infamous serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer's life. It was based off a graphic novel, like a story by the one of his friends. That's why it's called My Friend Dahmer, and he plays a major character in the movie. So we get a kind of a perspective from his view, but it's mostly about Jeffrey Dahmer from ages probably early high school to like it might only be a year to the end of high school.
Junior to senior year, pretty much. End of junior year, beginning of senior year, and throughout senior year.
So basically, Jeffrey Dahmer in here, it's a great performance. His parents are played by the guy from Mayhem.
Yeah.
The HR guy, his dad, and he's great. And Anne Heche from the Psycho remake. But yeah, both the parents' performances are top-notch. And this is kind of a very, very strange. Like, you want it to continue after it's over because there's no murders in the movie. This is just a small little chunk of his life where you get to see some of his psychology. And if you know anything about Dahmer, a lot of those beats are hit. Like the jogger's in here, although I don't think the jogger is very accurately portrayed. Mm-hmm. And they also make him a doctor, which wasn't the case, I don't think. I think the jogger was just a guy. But they do a lot of things, like they do the seizures that Dahmer used to do, which plays a major part in this. And they show his beginning of his alcoholism and stuff like that. And really, it's just like a coming-of-age slice-of-life movie, and if it wasn't Jeff Dahmer, it wouldn't be nearly as disturbing. But you got to think about this. We have this coming-of-age movie about Jeffrey Dahmer that takes him and makes him somewhat sympathetic, but this is like one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. Jeremy's input right there, a cough.
Mm-hmm.
What?
There we go.
What'd you think about it?
It's a beautiful movie. Well paced. I saw like a lot of myself in Dahmer. Not in like I might be a serial killer, but just the way that like friends exploit friends. I think we talked about that.
They do get into that, and that is very accurate because at one point in your life, you have maybe everybody I think's been that friend that's been exploited by other friends for jokes, and I think that you've exploited other people for jokes at times. You know, like the way it was done. And some of the friends say, "Are we really Jeff's friend? Or are we just like laughing at him?" And like I felt that way at times, and I felt that sometimes in certain groups people were laughing at me, and vice versa. It's very unique and strange that they would even make a movie that captures those feelings in a film, and I don't think they've ever really been captured that well in a coming of age movie until this one.
Yeah, it felt pretty accurate. It made me think back to like when I was about that age, which I don't do very often. So, good job.
And also they do they portray his parents. Like a lot of the things they say, well, Dahmer had normal parents. I mean, they were normal, I guess, to a certain extent, but there was fighting going on. There was turmoil, and they weren't watching him as close as they could. And some of the scenes in the movie are great, like when he goes to the physical and gets the checkup, and they don't really say it out loud, but you know what happens when he goes down, and it's just so awkward. There's so many awkward things in the movie. And at the end, although you know the story, so you know what's going to happen. If you don't, I wouldn't look into it. There's some tense moments that you know what's going to happen if you know the story. Kind of like the Titanic. Like, I doubt anybody's ever went into Titanic knowing it's not going to sink. But you know what I'm saying is that there's some tense stuff in here that's kind of hurt because you know the outcome anyways. But it's well made. There's not enough features on here. I believe there's only like interview with the lead actor, and that's it. And it's short, and he talks about stuff like that. It talks about the performance, but that's about it. It's interesting that they're going to do a movie about Bundy too, and Zac Efron's going to play Bundy.
Okay.
I mean, that's strange to me, but I think also it could be interesting. And there's a lot of interesting stuff about serial killers lately coming out.
I confuse Zac Efron with what's that other Zac guy?
I have no idea.
Galifianakis.
Yeah, whatever his last name.
Okay.
That would be the worst casting of Ted
Right?
Bundy of all time. But yeah, it's an interesting movie. It's well made. It's a coming of age story about a serial killer, but it does like kind of I think it might bother some people, you know, thinking that this character is being humanized. Although I'm not one that thinks that all serial killers are not humans, but I think that they've crossed that line where they should no longer be treated as such, if that makes any sense. It's an interesting movie for sure.
Right, and given the source material, it's from a comic book that was drawn by his friend. It is kind of autobiographical. Granted, it's his friend that's writing about Dahmer, but it goes into his friend's perspective to some extent. You know, like it's his remembering of events and trying to possibly to make sense out of it.
And there is dark humor in here as well. There's like a homosexual character, like a young kid that likes Dahmer, and Dahmer was, you know, obviously homosexual, and like he's like, you want to go to a concert with me? And like Dahmer doesn't want to like be best friends with him because that kid's always picked on and he doesn't want to point notice to himself. And there's that situation too in high school where somebody wants to be your friend and you wouldn't mind being their friends, maybe to a certain extent, but you could tell that they're just gonna bring you a lot of bad attention. So, you know, being insecure and stuff like that, and being a coward like a lot of people are when they're young, they just kind of like, no, I'm not gonna be that kid's friend because everybody will pick on me if I'm friends with him. And there's that kind of you know, thing about his sexuality where he didn't want to necessarily embrace his homosexuality, and being with that character would kind of point that out to a certain extent. They have the shed in here with the bodies, the animal carcasses being you know, melted and whatnot. And there's just a lot of stuff in there, like a lot of beats that happen in Dahmer's life, like the alcoholism, the thing where they meet the vice president at the time.
You mentioned the pig?
The pig, yeah. The pig where he somehow corresponded, you know, sexual nature with the autopsy of the pig and whatnot, and that kind of screwed him up for life. Like, once you mix that violence with your sex, then it's just kind of over at that point. They say, a lot of people will say, like, psychologists or whatever, once that's mixed, sex and violence in your psychology, there's sometimes with like these psychopaths or these certain brain types or whatever they are. I don't know. I don't look like a serial killer expert or anything, but you know, there can be a lot of problems. And I think it's a lot of great performances by the parents, and when they're fighting, it's actually like really cringeworthy but comical at the same time. And I think they paint portrayals of realistic characters, good, bad, and different, you know.
I now present to you Jeff.
Jeffrey. For this, I'm Jeffrey.
Okay, then I present to you Jeffrey Dahmer in his command performance.
Out of the way, Dahmer. Dumbass. I wish I had a best friend.
Jeff's a little off, you know? I think he's kind of hilarious. Hey, Jeff, do you want to come sit at our table? I think we should form a fan club. With you as our fearless leader, we can really disrupt the school.
Everybody ready?
It has been difficult with your mother, so I moved into a motel.
Take a deep breath. Are you okay?
Hey, Dahmer, it's in the bag.
You seem healthy to me. What about what's on a patient's mind?
We need to talk about Jeff.
What is this? You wouldn't know about the kids because you're not at home anymore.
You want to talk to somebody about it?
I see things in you that I don't like about myself. I want you to have friends in ways that I never could.
I thought you stopped.
Dad always tells me what to do, just like you, just like you.
I like bones. It interests me. What's inside?
God, Dahmer, you are such a freak!
He's not a sideshow attraction.
We're just having fun, you know?
Get out of your shell. You need to be more normal.
I'm just like anybody else.
Okay, guys, this next one I actually didn't have a copy of. I have a VHS of it, but I didn't watch the VHS because I imagine the quality's awful. It's kind of hard to find. A lot of people said they watched it on YouTube. I watched Rip from TV. It is Enemy Territory. I had heard about this from a couple places. They recently just did a really great John Carpenter episode on Pure Cinema podcast, and they talked about it on Screamcast. So it's been around. But Enemy Territory, this is definitely like a siege movie. Yeah. This is a weird one. We basically have, it's kind of like the urban kind of like survival movies, Night of the Living Dead, trapped in a place building. We have this insurance salesman who's down on his luck. He ends up going to this really bad apartment building, and after night, these gangs rule the city. You know, similar to the Warriors, I guess, they own their certain territories, and this gang is called the Vampires, led by Tony Todd. Really aggressive, really crazy, and a lot of obvious, you know, ties into vampire mythology. He gets trapped in here when he makes a mistake of touching somebody from the gang to ask for directions, and he's trapped in the apartment complex, and they're all trying to kill him. The only one that's there to help him is Ray Parker Jr., who is a phone operator who fixes phones. Ray Parker Jr. in this movie, surprisingly solid actor. The lead in here, the guy who's the place insurance salesman, is a realistic character. He's not particularly that likable. You don't really like him. But this is a strange movie. It has these weird comedy elements in here. He gets a commission. He has the commission of $6,000 or so from the insurance sale on here, and throughout the movie he has to keep giving it away to, you know, kind of save their lives. He ends up having to pair up with, of course, Ray Parker Jr., the insurance salesman, and this other lady from the tenant from the place when the gang becomes after them for helping them. The gang is vicious, they're ruthless, they're monsters, they're really unlikable, but they have a bond among each other. This feels like it falls out of a Death Wish movie. You know, it definitely comes from that same world of like Hobo with a Shotgun or Death Wish 3, where it's like right when you go into like a bad part of town, everything's chaotic. Nobody cares. The cops won't go there. No, you know, it's that kind of way that the cops don't care. And it even shows that in here that you're like, come on, guys, that's ridiculous. It's actually produced by Charles Band, which kind of blows my mind, and which is probably why it has these weird elements of comedy in the movie as well. And there's even a point where one of the bad guys in the movie like refuses to die. Psycho. So many things happen to this guy that you're like, this is turning into a slasher movie right now. The relationships between the insurance agent and Ray Parker Jr. are pretty fun, pretty great. Jan Michael Vincent is in here as well, and he plays a crazy Vietnam vet who is just completely insane. And of course, you guessed, I think he has some alcohol problems, which, you know, or at least he's acting like he does, and, you know, that's probably, you know, art imitating real life. So we have that going there. But there's some decent action in here. Tony Todd's intense and kind of scary. The ending's fairly memorable. I think that this movie, if it had more recognition, could be a cult item, and if it could fit into something, you know, like a 80s popular action movie, I think that it could have been there if people would have actually seen it. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's solid. I don't think it's perfect, but almost so many racist characters in the movie. Like the whole Vampires gang, completely racist. They call the white guy Ghost, and you know, Jan Michael Vincent's racist, and 90% of the people in this movie are racist besides the little old lady and Ray Parker Jr., to be honest. They're probably the only non-racist people in the movie. The cops are terrible, of course, but all in all, it has some good moments in here. It would be one that you would catch on HBO, and you would be, you know, vastly entertained. I think it's an MGM. So it'd be nice if maybe Kino or like Scream or Shout would release this one. You know, it could happen, you know. I mean, it's interesting to see. It has, like I said, Tony Todd and Ray Parker Jr. And the insurance agent looks familiar, but I can't pinpoint him. And Jan Michael Vincent. So it's got a nice little cast in here. It's got a fairly decent amount of action. It's never really boring. I like these kind of movies, these survival movies, these siege movies. Pure Cinema Podcast, they paired it up with Assault on Precinct 13, which I haven't seen in years, but I remember kind of liking that one. I remember it not being one of my favorite Carpenter movies, but it's probably due for a revisit on that. It's been so long since I've seen it. But yeah, and they also paired up one of the other movies I reviewed in here called The Siege, or what is it? What's the other? I can't remember the alternate title on your Self-Defense. But yeah, they're both interesting titles, and I'm glad I checked them out. Love the Pure Cinema Podcast. I donate to their Patreon, so if you guys like this show, they're way better at what they do than me, so check them out as well. But Enemy Territory, check out the trailer.
Take a desperate man.
You want to put me in jail? You want to put me in jail? Go right ahead, because I could use a break.
Give him the chance of a lifetime.
All you have to do to collect a big fat commission is go over there, get her signature, and collect the premium.
In the most dangerous place in town.
I'm going to tell you something, Sonny. I've had a very long day, and I have neither the time nor the patience for any more of you kids playing Scarface with me.
Hey, man, we got us a war zone here. Vampires. What do you see?
Move! Show me your fangs!
This is their territory.
Did the vampires do this?
And here, no one gets out alive.
This floor, room by room, closet by closet. Anybody won't let you in, you close the door.
There's a war going on out there, man.
They're alone. 20 floors up. And the only way out is down. Gary Frank, Ray Parker Jr., Jan Michael Vincent. Trapped in enemy territory.
I'm going to hop into the Weekly Western.
Let's go. Why not?
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Say when.
Feel I'm knocking up on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Hey, kitty, you bastard! It's you and I!
I don't deserve this.
It is The Shootist. I believe this had to be John Wayne, one of his last movies. And I think it's the only time John Wayne and Don Siegel made a movie together. If you guys don't know Don Siegel pretty much got Clint Eastwood and Sam Peckinpah's careers off to going. He was like I guess Sam Peckinpah's like protege, or not protege, he's a teacher and whatnot. Don Siegel directed a bunch of memorable movies, including Dirty Harry, Charlie Varick, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Don Siegel had a lot of great movies. He was a very prolific director, and probably one that people don't talk about enough for what he did. It's funny, Peckinpah actually appears in the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, so it's crazy to think that he helped Peckinpah and Clint Eastwood get on their way to making movies, and he never really worked with John Wayne, so that I know of. So that's great that Don Siegel and John Wayne got to make a movie together, and it's one of the Duke's last movies. John Wayne, everybody knows the story here. John Wayne was diagnosed with cancer, and his character in this movie is playing a character with cancer who's dying. He's an old gunfighter, and John Wayne in real life had cancer. So the allegory here is amazing. You got the Old West gunfighter kind of on his way out in film, and it's that time period, and in the West in the setting of this movie, and you got John Wayne going out out of life. So John Wayne has this way about him that that the character in this movie, he doesn't want to go out on suffering poorly. He wants to go out on his own terms. He wants to go out how a gunfighter should. Kind of similar to how Doc Holliday in Tombstone laughs. Isn't this funny? That is funny because he died without his shoes on. And a gunfighter would expect it would be, to die with his shoes on, with his boots on. And so in this movie, John Wayne moves into this town where there's a doctor he trusts, played by Jimmy Stewart, which is really nice to see. And he moves into Lauren Bacall's bed and breakfast, and with her son Ron Howard. So it's got a great, amazing cast. And Ron Howard kind of looks up to the old gunfighter / sheriff. And things start to happen where John Wayne realizes that he wants to go out on his own terms, and he starts to set up these circumstances. This love blossoms with Lauren Bacall, and it also has this whole element of like this sensationalist writer, how the legend's what's important in the West, not the actual story. And we have this sensationalist writer who wants to write John Wayne's story. He wants to write his story, and he wants to tell a bunch of lies. And everybody's out for John Wayne's story, and there's people out there that want to take John Wayne out just to have the the recognition of taking out such a memorable or famous gunfighter, probably one of the most famous in history at this time. And the lines in this movie are great. You see the sadness in John Wayne's eyes. Some of the dialogue in here is priceless. Very memorable stuff. The relationship with him and Lauren Bacall is typical, like something like Real Bravo, where he's always constantly fighting with this female lead. I like it. I think it's funny. I think it's clever. The relationship between Ron Howard and John Wayne is good as well. Scatman Crothers is in here as well. Always love seeing Scatman Crothers, and especially him and John Wayne's scene is very, very funny. We have Bill McKinley from Junior Bonner and the outlaw Josie Wales in here. You have Richard Boone. You have a really, really nice cast, to be honest. And the sheriff in here, his interactions with John Wayne is priceless. Whoever wrote the script to this movie did a tremendous job. The dialogue in here is wonderful. John Wayne has a great line where he says, "You think you're some..." Lauren Bacall yells at him and says, "You think you're something special, like a godlike figure," or something like that. And he says, "No, I'm just a dying man afraid of the dark." And it's just like, wow, that is so touching and sad. This release is actually a Spanish Blu-ray. There is a German one. I chose to go with the Spanish one. It was cheaper to hold me over until the U.S. hopefully releases a Blu-ray of the Shootist. But I think it's a really great performance on John Wayne's part, and the shootout at the end I absolutely love. Yes, it is predictable. A lot of things that John Wayne says do come true, but he is a man of wisdom, and he sets the whole thing up. Everything's set up to happen that way. It's almost like a fate for John Wayne, and his own fate that he's setting up. I think it's a tremendous movie. I think that it's one of the last westerns at the time, with one of the great actors of the West, one of his last movies, and getting him to interact with all these legend actors or future legends like Jimmy Stewart and Lauren Bacall and Ron Howard and Scatman Crothers and Bill McKinley and all these people was just a treat. I hadn't seen the movie in years. I saw it on TV years ago, and I remember my grandfather and dad and uncle and stuff talking about the movie. They said, well, John Wayne was actually dying during that movie, and you can see it. And John Wayne doesn't die typically in movies, but I don't want to give anything away. But, going out on your own terms when you're dying of cancer, that's not a luxury many people can afford. But a great movie, and I really enjoyed rewatching it. But I really recommend checking out The Shootist. Great stuff.
The Western movie has become an American tradition. Films like Stagecoach, Red River, Shane, High Noon, and the Magnificent Seven will never be forgotten. Now, Dino De Laurentiis presents perhaps the greatest Western of them all, The Shootist, the story of John Bernard Books, the last of the great gunfighters, a living legend. The role is being played by an actor who is himself a living legend, John Wayne.
I won't be wronged, I won't be insulted, I won't be laid a hand on. I don't do these things to other people. I require the same from them.
You hold it right there. Just throw me your wallet.
Yes, sir. A little something extra.
Co-starring with Wayne is a group of Hollywood's finest actors. James Stewart.
You have a cancer. Advanced.
How much time do I have?
2 months, 6 weeks. There's no way to tell.
Lauren Bacall.
Mr. Books, you are a notorious individual, utterly lacking in character or decency. You're an assassin.
It's going to which end of the gun you're on.
Rubbish.
Ron Howard.
Would you give me a shooting lesson?
Well, a man should know how to handle a gun.
How could you get into so many fights and then always come out on top?
I found out early that most men, regardless of cause or need, blink an eye or draw a breath before they pull a trigger. I won't.
Richard Boone.
Well, I heard that you were in town for a very short time.
That's true.
John Carradine.
I'm Hezekiah Beckham, the Undertaker, sir.
Oh, Beckham, you're gonna do to me what they did to John Wesley Hardin. You're gonna lay me out, let the public come by and gawp at me for 50 cents a head.
Mr. Books, you're a hard man.
I'm alive.
Scatman Crothers.
Mr. Books, it's pure pleasure to groom your horse, and even a greater pleasure to do business with you.
Harry Morgan.
Books, this is 1901. The old days are gone, and you don't know it. You've plain plumb outlived your time.
Richard Lenz.
You must appreciate, sir, that you are the most celebrated shootist extant.
Extant?
Still existing.
Sherry North.
Everybody knows who you are. I'd be Mrs. J.B. Books. I'd be somebody.
Hugh O'Brien.
Old Books is cashing in.
That's hard news. It's a man I could have taken.
This film has the makings of a classic.
I would not die a death like I just described. Not if I had your courage.
In it, John Wayne gives the most remarkable performance of his career.
I'm a dying man, scared of the dark.
As he recreates the final days.
There's more to being a man than handling a gun.
Of the man they called the Shootist.
Deserve's got nothing to do with it.
When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk.
Okay, guys, the pick a movie was by Jonathan Wilhelm. He sent this 1031, and he picked it. This is an Halloween anthology. You guys know I'm a big fan of Halloween anthologies, obviously. You know, I helped make one, Halloween Spookies. Advertisement. But regardless, this has 5 stories in here. The first one is Old Hag Haunted House. The second one is kind of an evil scarecrow. The third one is strange roller rink slasher movie. The fourth one is Christmas versus Halloween in some sorts. And the fifth one is a super bizarre serial killer slasher one. The first one, the Old Hag one, I think is a really well-made haunted house story or kind of spooky, scary story about these two wannabe filmmakers who want to shoot this commercial for this old lady in the house on Halloween. And one of them keeps seeing this old hag. The other one doesn't believe him. Of course, it ends tragically. This movie has a lot of these drone establishing shots and whatnot, and they look really nice at first, but then I start thinking they keep doing them over and over again. I'm like, this is starting to show that they're capable filmmakers, but they're working on a budget because they keep doing the same thing over and over again, even though they look nice and they're establishing shots, but that it kind of shows its budget here. This one is well made though, and I think the acting's solid, and I like the twist. And it's kind of creepy. The second one is the best of the bunch. If they were all this good, this would be like a 5-star movie. This one follows the story of these two on a date, and they go see a movie. They don't like it, so the girl decides to take them out and show some of the new guys some of the local mythology. She takes them out to this abandoned house where these people, it has this haunted history. Apparently, this family was slaughtered by the father because a strange scarecrow was around. Everybody got sick from it, and he killed them all. And she decides to screw around with the scarecrow that was supposedly put there by, it's like a gypsy curse, and tragedy happens. There's this, to their dismay, something bad happens, of course. And the story, there's still more to the story. The scarecrow looks great, super creepy. I love the music in this one. I really love this one. This one's awesome. The third one is this strange story about a roller rink love abandonment issue thing, and it is super weird. There's a little kid in here who's always wearing a mask and talking with a megaphone thing. Not a megaphone, but a voice changer. This one's really weird. Has a lot of kills in it. It's ambitious as hell, and the ending is insane. I didn't love it, but I kind of liked it, and I respect it. The fourth one in here is probably the weakest. Definitely the weakest. It definitely looks like the most unprofessional. I think it was probably shot one of the first. The editing is poor. There's so many gaps. There's like seconds between, like someone will talk and then there'll be like 3-4 seconds and then someone will talk. It makes the acting really awkward, the delivery really awkward, and I'm not sure if it's the dialogue, the actors, or the editing, or a little bit of both. It's just super awkward and just cringeworthy on a lot of the editing and stuff like that when it comes to dialogue. It hurts the movie big time. Just the weakest of the bunch all around. Not a particularly good short. I like the aspect that it's Christmas versus Halloween, and Santa Claus coming in to try to get the naughty kids for trick or treating and whatnot. That's kind of a cool concept. It's just not executed very well. The last one is really weird, really crazy. Not sure what the hell's going on. It is kind of a surreal slasher serial killer thing, and the twist in here is weird. I'm not sure if I really like this one either. I would recommend checking it out for sure. It's a nice thing to put on Halloween and leave in the background. The first three are all well worth watching, especially the second one is excellent. I think it's all around it's fair because there's a couple good shorts, one great, two good, one bad, and one okay. So, I mean, that's nice. Out of 5 shorts, usually that's what's great about anthologies. You don't always love them all, but you got at least a couple winners in there, and this one has more good than bad. So, I really kind of dug it. But that's 1031 if you're interested in checking it out. It says from the makers of Volumes of Blood and The Barn. The Barn is tremendous stuff. Volumes of Blood is alright as well.
Good evening, my victims, and welcome to my Halloween Monster Marathon with me, your host, Malvolia, the Queen of Scream.
We're going to do the pick a movie. I hope you enjoyed the reviews. Let me hop into the pick a movie for you guys. I think the last person that won was Adam Weber, and he picked Sushi Girl, which I haven't seen, which should be cool. Let's see who's going to win this. If you ever want to enter, just leave your name on the Screaming Toilet book or on YouTube or wherever and say I want to be entered in the pick a movie, and I'll pick you. Who do we got here? We got James Grimmer again. It's funny. It's like I have like different names in the hat, but the same few get called. Maybe their names are just the right length to get pulled. I don't know. But let me know what you want to pick, James Grimmer. James Grimmer has a question here. I have heard from others that Italian films can be confusing depending on the director and how a movie plays out, and I would have to concur with them. Do you find the confusing aspects of something such as The House by the Cemetery make it more intriguing or tend to be a hindrance? I actually enjoy a lot of the Nightmare logic. I don't particularly like Nightmare logic when it comes to giallos unless it's an Argento and it's like Suspiria or Inferno, because that kind of, but when it's like a straightforward giallo, you got to kind of stay away from a lot of that, or it just, especially if it's a nice tight murder mystery, you're like, that's weird. But when you come to like the bizarre stuff like The Beyond and City of the Living Dead and House by the Cemetery, especially Fulci, the Nightmare logic I love, or The Burial Ground, stuff like that. Mike Knight, Do you have a favorite live music performance in a horror movie, sci-fi movie? I missed those 5-minute scenes of local band in a bar or club to pad the movie out. My favorite, maybe someday, an Alien Factor. I actually love the Monster Club from the movie Monster Club. The one that's like, monsters are the best. That one always sticks in my head. There's also, what is it? I think one that's completely nonsensical is Hack-A-Lantern. Goes like into the TV and turns into a moment. They're enjoyable. I definitely would go for the Neon Maniacs one at the end. Sorry to ruin your evening. Or do you want it for Monster Club? Like those. Ben Miller, has any film ever gotten so uncomfortable far into the taboo territory that you almost had to, or actually did turn it off and took a break to walk away and never finish? Sweet Movie did this for me personally. Yeah, Sweet Movie's pretty rough. I don't even know how they passed a lot of that with the child stuff and nudity. I'm just like, this is on Hulu right now? Yeah. The Slaughter Vomit movies, you know, like the Lucifer Valentine stuff. At this point in my life, I would just be like, nope. Or if there's like real like scat in a movie, like a mixtape or somebody, I'm like, I'm not watching that. Nope, I'm done. That I wouldn't watch that stuff. That would be too much for me. Like real feces and stuff in a movie, no. Timothy Hayes, please enter me in the pick a movie drawing. Russ Myers being okay. Nick, if you could travel through time, would you go forward or back, and why? Neither, because I would screw something up and I would be complete. I mean, there's lots of things I'd like to change, but I know I would make it worse. Are you a method actor? Can you turn it off with ease? I think I'm mostly not a method actor, but occasionally I will be method. For example, in Hunters, they had some something tied to my arm because I was holding the camera and I was supposed to be carrying this heavy thing on my arm and it wasn't going to be in frame for a while, probably the rest of the shot. So I just said, they're like, you want me to take it off? I was like, just keep it on, even though it was uncomfortable. That kind of method, that kind of thing. Or like if I have to limp, I'll like actually bend my toe so it hurts. So it's, you know, that kind of thing. So I guess I'm a little bit method, but mostly not. You've had some gnarly death scenes. Which was the coolest to shoot? Which was the most difficult? I think the coolest was probably Her Name Was Torment 2 because Marcus Cook did the special effects and my head got split. I think that looked cool. I don't know if it was the coolest to shoot, but it definitely was one of the coolest effects I thought, and that was cool. One of the hardest ones, man. There's been some hard ones to think about. Headless was really cold and just miserable experience. That was a pretty miserable death. I'm sure there's some other ones that were bad. Plank Face was miserable too, because again it was getting cold. So there's lots of them that are miserable. John Wilhelm, out of the two movies, which one is your favorite? The Blob 80s remake or Deadly Spawn? Love them both. Blob's way better of a movie, but Deadly Spawn I think I have a personal connection to. Both of them I love. I can't really pick. Andrew DMB, hey Dave, was curious to know if you're a Takashi Miike fan, or if you had seen the new one put out in the U.S. by Magnet, The Blade of the Immortal. No, I haven't, and looks like he's coming out with another one U.S. called As the Gods Will put out by Funimation. I'm a big fan of his, but haven't heard much on these two films. Also, I wish the U.S. would put out more Asian titles on Blu-ray, especially more Shaw Brothers. I know 88 has a line out dedicated to a lot of those titles. I wish a company over here would get a hold of the rights and put out a good treatment of them. Anyway, yeah, you know, I wish that we would get some of the Asian titles, especially the Hong Kong titles or the Cat 3 titles like Untold Story or Red to Kill or Run to Kill or Brothers of Darkness. A lot of these I hadn't seen. I've seen some of them, but it would be nice to see like Ebola Syndrome on Blu-ray. A lot of the Asian stuff, completely obscure stuff. The Beast or The Five Beasts, that movie was crazy. Revenge movie. Never seen it released here. Her Vengeance has never had a really nice release. There's tons of Asian stuff that I'd like to see get released. But thank you for watching, and let's hop into the update. Okay, let's hop into the update. What do we got here? Let's start with this one. This is Deadly Games. I heard about this from a couple places. This is a German import. This is, I think it's a European movie. I'm not sure, from Amsterdam or something like that. I know that Rob Galuzzo liked it quite a bit on the Shockwaves podcast, so I ended up checking it out. Hopefully it is cool. Then we have Shrew's Nest. This is the Spanish Blu-ray that has English subtitles. The German one, my understanding, doesn't. I really like this movie. I thought it was great. It's on Shudder if you want to check it out. Real wonderful thriller, psychological stuff, and really twisted. Then we have Terrifier. This is supposed to be like the sequel to the All Hallows Eve short. I had not watched that yet. I have it. Anthology on Halloween again. But this looks interesting. This is from the Dread Central Presents, their first Blu-ray. Rob Galuzzo's involved with that too. So, you know, I'll support them. Good stuff. Looks like good stuff, I should say. Then we have the Teenage Prostitution Racket. The title alone will make me laugh out loud. This is so ridiculous. This is a Raro. I've not seen this one. Features on here, I'm not really sure. It just doesn't really have anything. It just has some cutscenes. But, you know, I'm a fan of Raro. Then we have Let Her Out, which Moods talked about on the 22 Shots of Moods and Horror podcast. This is a German Blu-ray. It's supposed to be like a little creature inside somebody or a doppelganger or something like that. That kind of stuff interests me. So another German import. This is My Father Die. I heard good things about this from, who was it? I think I want to say it was Brad Henderson from the Screamcast. I'm not 100% sure though. But I've got the German Blu-ray because it's pressed, and the American Blu-ray goes for like $25, and it's a burn on demand. So it's like, nope, not for that price. Not when I can spend $10 on the German. Then we have the Diamond Guys Volume 2 from Arrow. Not seen this yet. Pretty cool. 3-disc in there. One of the last I needed. Then we have, I'm not going to even bother trying to say this, the Seijun Suzuki Early Years Volume 1. You know my pronunciation skills, not great. We have a book in here. A couple titles. I'm not familiar with these, but I wanted to check them out. You know, big fan of Arrow, so. And then, of course, we have some from the keynote sale. This one's not from the sale. I picked this up from eBay, the Spikes Gang. Lee Marvin. Heard good things about this movie, actually. Sinbad of the Seven Seas. This is an Italian one. This is from the keynote sale. Who did this one? Ennio Casarelli. So, yeah, the guy did Inglourious Bastards. Billy Two Hats. Another from the keynote sale. Bustin' with Elliot Gould. And it looks like Sid Haig on the cover there, don't it? I bet Sid Haig's in this. Looks cool. Trailer looked cool. Then we have Captain Apache with Lee Van Cleef. Yeah. And Stuart Whitman. Stuart Whitman from Ruby. And a slew of other stuff. Then we have the Executioner song. I think they talked about this on Pure Cinema podcast. Tommy Lee Jones. This will see about a real-life killer based on a true story. We have Making Contact. This I know. I think I've seen as a kid. That looks like something I would have rented repeatedly, and the cover's so familiar. I really do think I've seen it, but I don't remember a thing about it. And then we have The Man Called Noon from Kino. Yeah, Kino had a nice sale. Sometimes they're like $7, $8. It's hard to pass up Blu-rays for that price. But thank you very much for watching, guys, and back to the video. Thanks again, guys, for watching and everything. And as always, you guys have a good one.